This is the Olympus M.Zuiko Pro 25mm F1.2 Micro Four Thirds lens. It was announced in September 2016. It weighs 410 grams and its length is 8.7 centimeters. So that's the portion which protrudes from the camera. So this portion here. So the tiny bit here at the end which goes into the camera isn't considered as the length of the lens. It has a filter thread of 62 millimeters. And its maximum aperture is f1.2 and its minimum aperture is f16. It has 9 aperture blades, so it should provide nice looking background blur with less edges on the bokeh, and its diagonal angle of view is 47 degrees, and the closest focusing distance on this lens is 30 centimeters. The lens has a lens function button which you can assign to do anything you want on the camera, and the lens also has a focus clutch, so you can pull the focus ring backwards and the lens will switch into completely manual focus mode, so the lens stops to take orders from the camera and instead works with the electronics which are inside the lens. And once you want to switch back to using autofocus, then you push the focus ring forward. This lens is weather sealed to IPX1 rating, and it's a really good lens in terms of image quality and also dealing with backlit situation or side light or anything that other lenses would struggle to cope with. The disadvantages of this lens is that it's big and heavy. So I don't know if you consider those disadvantages, but that's the only disadvantage I could think of. And it does have a lot of advantages. So it has a minimum aperture of f1.2. So f1.2 is some of the biggest apertures for Micro Four Thirds lenses. So that would give you a lot of background blur, which sometimes people struggle to get with smaller sensor cameras. So this is the lens for that if you're looking to get a lot of background blur. And it also has a focus clutch, so that's another advantage. And it's also weather sealed. So here you can see that it says splash proof. So it has weather sealing to IPX1 rating and it has a really high image quality. So this is a really good lens. So one lens we can compare this to is the Olympus M.Zuiko 25mm F1.8. So this is the cheaper version or the non-pro version if you want to call it that. So this lens weighs 137 grams, so 1/3 of the weight of the Pro Series lens. And in terms of size, this one is 4.2 centimeters, whereas the Pro Series lens is 8.7 centimeters. So half the size of the Pro lens. And the maximum aperture for the M.Zuiko lens is f1.8, whereas on the Pro lens it's f1.2. The minimum aperture on the M.Zuiko lens is f22, whereas the minimum aperture on the Pro lens is f16. The closest focusing distance on the M.Zuiko lens is 25 centimeters, whereas on the M.Zuiko Pro series is 30 centimeters. If you can see that there. The normal M.Zuiko lens doesn't have weather sealing and it doesn't have a focus clutch to pull back, whereas the M.Zuiko Pro lens you can just pull back the focus ring and it acts like a focus clutch, switching to manual and back to automatic. And the M.Zuiko lens doesn't have a lens function button, which you find on the M.Zuiko Pro lens. And the image quality is slightly worse. I don't like to use the word worse for this lens because the image quality that the M.Zuiko lens produces is really good, but I would say this one is a tiny bit sharper, has a tiny bit less distortion, deals with backlit situations a tiny bit better. So in all sense, this Pro lens is better, but obviously there's a price and the size and weight that goes with it. So you have to decide what's more important to you, getting the maximum bit of image quality out of the lens or having something small and light and easy to carry. So another lens to compare this to is the Panasonic Lumix 25mm F1.7. So this lens is very light, so it weighs 125 grams, which is less than 3 times the weight of the M.Zuiko Pro series lens, and it has a length of 5.2 centimeters, so it's shorter than the M.Zuiko Pro lens, and it has an aperture of f1.7, whereas the M.Zuiko Pro lens has an aperture of f1.2, and the minimum aperture on the Lumix lens is f22, whereas the minimum aperture on the Olympus M.Zuiko Pro lens is f16. The closest focusing distance on the Lumix lens is 25 centimeters, whereas on the M.Zuiko Pro lens is 30 centimeters. The Panasonic lens doesn't have weather sealing and no focus clutch and no lens function button and lower image quality. And the Lumix lens also has a focus shift problem, so it front focuses a little bit. So the only reason to buy the Lumix lens over this Olympus M.Zuiko Pro would be the price. Apart from that, I think the M.Zuiko lens is better in every sense. And in general, I wouldn't recommend the Lumix lens because of the focus shift problem that it has. Now there's another lens which is good, but I don't have that lens to show you, is the Panasonic Leica 25mm F1.2. So it weighs 205 grams, so half the weight of the Olympus M.Zuiko Pro lens, and it has a length of 5.45 centimeters, so it's smaller than the Olympus M.Zuiko Pro lens, and its maximum aperture is f1.4. So it's not as bright as the Olympus M.Zuiko lens, but it's smaller and lighter. And the Panasonic Leica 25mm F1.4 Mark II has received a lot of high praise for its image quality, so that lens is also really good. And some people say it's actually better than the M.Zuiko Pro, but that's assuming that you don't need the larger aperture and more shallow depth of field. So you have to choose which compromises you want to make. But essentially that lens is also really good. So to summarize this Olympus M.Zuiko Pro 25mm F1.2, I would say it's a really good lens, and if you don't mind the bigger size and the bigger weight, then it's definitely a really good lens to go for. So there's a lens hood for this lens, and it's called the OM System LH-66B. So I forgot to mention this, but that's the lens hood for it. And it locks into place and it has a small button here which you press before you unscrew it. So some of these plastic lenses, they don't have this button here, and some of them do, but this is one of the ones that has it. So there you can see OM System lens hood LH-66B. Anyway, let me know if you have any questions about this lens, or if you want me to compare it to any other lens. I'm going to include the unboxing in the video just in case someone wants to know what actually comes in the box. So this is the box for it, and you have the detail, the 50mm equivalent in full frame, focal length 25mm, and there you have the aperture f1.2 and the focal length. So I'm just gonna open this to see what actually comes included with the lens. So that's the warranty card as usual, and some sales leaflet and information about Olympus becoming OM Digital Solutions, and the very basic, I guess, instruction manual or starter guide. And this should be the lens. Okay, this is one of those lens pockets. Has a bit of padding, so if you wanted to carry it around, you could use it with this pocket type thing instead of actually having to buy a camera insert. It does have some padding, but it's not a lot of padding. Okay, so this should be the lens itself. Comes with a lens hood. And the lens itself. It's actually quite heavy. So 25mm f1.2 with a 62mm thread. And it has the manual focus clutch as well, and a lens function button.